Miss Laura with the Wichita Falls Arts Council, and today we're going to create a composition using a special shape called an ellipse. So I have one here, and I have one here, and they're acting as holes or portals that little shapes are traveling through and entering, so going in and out of basically just holes. Here's another one where I have these two worms. They're coming out of two different size portals made out of ellipses. So we have a sheet that kind of looks like this. I've already cut a few out. So you're going to need about half of the full sheet. It should have a number 5 at the top. And there's a bunch of different ellipses that we can cut out so we don't have to draw them on our own. So these are special shapes. They happen when we take a circle. So here's just a regular circle I've cut out of paper. And we look at it from a different point of view or a different perspective. So if I start tilting this circle, it's no longer very circular. It's sort of taken on an oval shape. This is an ellipse. And the more I tilt it, the skinnier the ellipse is, kind of like this one here. These wider, more circular ellipses are ones where it's just like we're looking closer to the top. Okay. So I've already cut a few out. And now I'm going to use the cutout ellipses. You can only cut out one or several depending on how many holes you want. And there's a variety of different sizes depending on how big you want your portal or hole to be. And we're going to do that by starting with a setting. So this is just a plain sheet of paper. We provided that sky blue construction paper. If you want to use colors that are pretty normal, blue sky, green grass. But I think I'm going to use some non-traditional colors. So I'm starting with this green. It's actually pretty close to blue. And I've cut out a little ground. You can include a ground if you want to. You do not need to. I'm going to glue this down. Then I'm going to start making some holes or portals using my ellipse stencils. I could use the stencil directly as a portal, or if I wanted to have it be a different color, maybe it's like a dark hole in the ground, I could choose like using a black scrap piece of paper. So you can either use 4 fresh half sheets. I'm just using my scrap bin because a lot of the pieces that I'm making today are going to be very small. Okay, so I'm just taking my stencil and a pencil, and I'm tracing it onto a piece of scrap. And this can be any color, it doesn't need to be black. And I'm holding the stencil down to my scrap paper with my non-dominant hand. So I'm right-handed. That means I'm drawing with my left hand, or drawing with my right hand, and then holding the stencil down with my left hand. Okay, you can kind of see it here. This pencil will show up on black paper. I'm going to cut out my little traced ellipse carefully. Okay, so now I have a hole. I can choose to make more later, but I'm going to start with this one for right now. And I think I'm going to put it on the ground. I could put it in the sky. If I wanted to just open up a giant hole in the sky, I could even tilt it sideways if I wanted, or even an angle. But I'm just going to keep it as a hole and horizontal on the ground. I'm now going to use more scrap paper to cut out different shapes that are going to emerge from this ellipse. So I'm going to find some paper, maybe a different color. I saw pink paper here. Okay. So I'm using green. Okay. So I'm going to use my pencil to draw I think I'm just going to do like a little gas bubble thing coming out. Cut out that shape. You can make a bunch of little shapes. You can do part of an animal that's maybe living in a hole in the ground. What you want traveling from your portal or hole is up to you. We're going to talk a little bit about the dot stickers in a second. And maybe it's that you mostly want dots. That's fine too. So I've cut out a shape here. I'm going to have coming out of this hole in the ground. Maybe it's like a plant, or it kind of looks like a ghost. I'm going to, without gluing my portal to my setting, I'm going to glue my shape to this hole. Well, it's not glued to anything else. And I'm going to make sure that my shape extends a little bit beyond the bottom of my ellipse. So when I flip it over, I should see a little tiny sliver of my shape sticking out. Okay, so I'm going to glue just this part onto my ellipse. So I'm going to grab some glue. There it is. I'm going to put glue. Okay, gluing on. Okay, and then I'm going to flip it over and I'm just going to cut off the excess. I don't want to cut off this big part. I want this to appear like it's coming out of the hole in the ground. I just need to cut off one side, and I'm going along the line or the curve of my ellipse. So I'm just kind of the green part that's sticking out. And I'm being careful not to cut off any of my black ellipse. Okay. So now when I place it on here, because I've cut off this bottom part and it's meeting the edge of that ellipse, it looks like this thing is traveling out of the hole. So we just basically cut off everything from this one side. I could even add another shape. So just going to cut out a random shape here. Doing like a worm theme. So maybe I'll cut out a little worm. And have that coming out. And all I have to do is glue it just like I did my big green shape. I have at least a little part of it hanging off the edge here. And I flip it over and I'm just cutting from this one side. I'm just cutting off the part that sticks out. Okay, so now it's like I have two little shapes coming out of this hole. And then I'm going to place it around, figure out where I like it. And then I can glue this whole thing down. We have also included dot stickers. So maybe you don't want a big shape coming out of a hole or an animal coming out of a hole, and you want to use dots, or you can use a combination of both. I'm going to just take some of these dot stickers, and then I'm just going to start sticking them as if they're traveling out of the hole. And I could even line up some dot stickers by cutting maybe one in half. I'll cut a different color so you can see. So here's a purple. I'm going to cut a dot sticker in half. Just cut that little part off. And that way I can line it up with the edge of my ellipse, because I don't want it sticking out of the bottom. I want to keep this line clear. Okay. So now it's kind of like a dot is traveling out of the hole and we're blocked by this border. I'm going to keep sticking. You can even overlap them. Maybe they're just traveling around. So once I've done that, I can choose to add maybe a smaller hole. Maybe it's just floating in the middle of space, and I'm going to choose a different color to do this. And then basically cut off one of the edges so that it looks like things are traveling out from the hole, because if we leave the object on both sides without cutting an edge off, it's just going to look like something sitting on top of a hole. We wanted to make it look like it's coming out of it. So that's why we cut off the excess on one side. Okay, so I'm just going to keep adding things to this. I might add some things to my setting. Maybe some flowers, some plants, some clouds, maybe an animal, who knows? But I'm just going to keep working at this. You want to include at least one portal or hole in your composition, but the rest of it, as for what you want to fill it in with or the things that you want coming out of your portal, that's up to you. Okay.